welcome everyone to today's interview with Joshua Milligan. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you.
Really excited to have you here on the show, Josh. I want to give a little bit of your background, though, for all those viewers out there. So Josh is a native of Oklahoma and just recently moved his family back there after living in Texas for over a decade. Josh is married and a father of 3. He has been a consultant at Teknion for over 13 years now. And he started off doing development work back when that was all we did. But shortly after Teknion became a Tableau partner back in 2008, Josh started using Tableau and he fell in love with the tool. And so since then he's been focused on that for a significant amount of his time, both at work and in his free time, personal time, spending a lot of time really becoming a master of the tool. And so he's been recognized 3 times now by Tableau as a Zen Master for his contributions to the community and to the product vision. Over the years, he's developed a following of readers at his blog, vizpainter.com, and listeners now on the Teknion webinar series, where he co-hosts with Zen Master Bridget Cogley. People continually return to enjoy his brilliant work there. At TC17, not only did Joshua compete in the Iron Viz contest, but he was also honored by Tableau through an exhibit of several games he developed in Tableau, as well as presenting in a session. So I think some of those games were in like an arcade style setup, and I think you have like backgammon, or no, got that wrong, blackjack, and
things like Star Trek, Battleship, tic-tac-toe.
So some really creative ways to use Tableau. So that's a lot of fun. So welcome and thanks for joining us for this conversation. Really appreciate it, Josh.
Thank you for having me.
So today, what we're going to interview Josh about is the competition, the Iron Viz Championship that he participated in at Tableau Conference. And we want to kind of get the background behind the scenes, what is it like to compete in an Iron Viz contest? And so really excited to get your thoughts on that, Josh. So Josh, can you tell us a little bit of background on the Tableau Iron Viz contest? What's it all about?
Yeah, so Iron Viz has been done by Tableau for, I think, 7 years now. I think this is number 7. And each year they select 3 contestants to go up on stage in front of an audience and live, right there, in 20 minutes, build out a dashboard that tells a data story, given a single data set to work with.
Okay, very good. So for those who haven't seen it or been there in person, give us kind of some of the details. I mean, that sounds exciting, but like, what's the format? How long do you have, and so on?
Yeah, so each of the contestants gets a single data set. It's the same one for each person, and every year it's something different and something new, and it's a surprise to the contestants first, and then it's revealed to the audience what it is, and then they have 20 minutes on stage live, starting from scratch with nothing prepared beforehand, to build out a dashboard or a story of some kind to visually share what they have discovered in the data.
Okay. Very cool. So, and there's a prize at the end, right?
Yeah, and there's a panel of judges that will evaluate the work. They'll ask questions, make critiques, and each contestant has a little bit of time to explain what they did, answer the judges' questions, and communicate that story to the audience.
And then I think this year at least the audience got to vote via Twitter, right? And so that was a part of the scores as well. So
yeah, I think that's been done a couple of times, but yes, that was definitely part of it.
Very good, very good. And so I don't know if you mentioned this, but I think there's 3 individuals, right, who compete in the actual championship round. How do those 3 people get selected, and what's that process like?
Yeah, so throughout the course of the year, Tableau has feeder competitions. And so they'll announce a competition. You can usually find out about it on Twitter, or I think they even had an email sign up where you could get a notification when the contest is open. And then you've got a couple of weeks to build something out. Now there's always a theme that's announced, so in the past they've had things like movies or politics. Based on that theme, you can find any public data source that you'd like, and tell a visual story around that data. And you have a couple of weeks to do it, so it's not the 20 minutes on stage. And so you'll see people do some really creative things.
Yeah.
And it's just amazing to see. I mean, you'll have people who this is their first time to publish something to Tableau Public, and then you'll have people who have been doing it for years. But it's really neat just to see the community come together and do it and have a lot of fun and learn a lot through the process.
Yeah. So I think you competed in the geospatial feeder contest. So this year, there was a geospatial one. There was one where you had to use something about nature, I think it was, flora or fauna, something like that, a data set around that idea. And then the last one was silver screen, so movies and data around that. So that's pretty cool. So I'd love to take a look at your visualization that you produced for the geospatial one, and maybe have you walk us through what the only way I can describe it is kind of an infographic, really, but it's interactive. So maybe walk us through what you built and what story you were trying to tell with that.
Yeah, so the contest was announced, and it was around the same time that Tableau had released the new feature of the spatial file connector.
Okay.
So you could connect to spatial files, and that was really the only stipulation on this contest, was that it had to be a spatial file data source. So I found one that was actually really interesting because it was the counties of the United States, but it had the entire history, all the way back from when it was colonies through about the year 2000. So how the counties had made up states and how these things had changed shape over time. In fact, it was interesting to see that county borders are still redrawn quite often, even now. But especially in the early history, you see the territories and they become states. And so this infographic, I did a long form dashboard because what I wanted to do was to take various snapshots of history and show you what was going on at the time. What did the United States look like? And it's interactive, so you can change the year and kind of see for that given snapshot of time, who was the political leader, what did the flag look like, and so all of these details change, and then as you scroll down, you're getting later and later in history, and along the way, I share some other just small data stories around different things like the French and Indian War or the Civil War, just various things where the data gives you a little bit of flavor of what's going on in the history.
Yeah, it's you could even click through like the years of the Civil War and see how when you think of the Civil War now as one thing, but it actually had more of a timeline and things were happening. And
Yeah.
with data, you can see that storytelling. That's really cool. Thanks for sharing that, Joshua. So there are many great visualizations there. What do you think really set yours apart in terms of that feeder contest that got you selected to go to the championship round?
Yeah, I entered that contest and I really didn't have an expectation that I would win the contest. I saw it as an opportunity to engage with the community and learn and grow in my data storytelling capabilities, get some feedback from the community. I think what set mine apart, though, was that it was different. It was a long form dashboard. I think there was maybe one other that had been submitted before that was a long form. So that was different. I also used a technique of using a semi-transparent image to kind of give the entire thing this feel of parchment. And it starts out looking really old, but as you scroll down and you get into more recent history, it sort of fades away and becomes more contemporary looking. So I think there was an aesthetic that I tried to bring to it that I don't know that I've seen that before. I have seen some other creative uses of transparency in dashboards, but I really tried something new here.
That's really great. Love to see that creativity that you put into that. So knowing that what we know about the format of the contest, I think everyone's mind is going to kind of go to the next question of, well, how do you prepare for being on stage in front of 15,000 people and building a dashboard in 20 minutes from scratch, right? So I'm just trying to think, like, what are the visualization push-ups that you can do, right, that train you for that? So give us a little bit of your thought process there.
Yeah, so when I learned that I had won the competition, then I knew I was going to be on stage. But they didn't let me know what the contest was going to be, what the data set was, or even what the topic was. So I didn't really feel like there was anything specifically that I could prepare for. I did pull a couple of books off my bookshelf, Storytelling with Data by Cole Knaflic, and the Big Book of Dashboards, and a couple of others, and I flipped through them just to kind of refresh my memory on, what are some other ways of telling data stories that maybe aren't the ones that I naturally gravitate towards.
Sure.
Other than that, though, it really was waiting until the other feeder contests were done, and then we still had to wait even longer. And then a week before the competition is when we actually got the data set, and then we could really start to look at it.
Okay, so you found out what the topic was a week before. So tell us a little bit about the data set that you received, and then what your process was for kind of planning the 20 minutes of craziness there.
Yeah, so we got this data set, and it was, for a data set, it was fairly large, especially when you think of Tableau Public and the kind of data sets that you are usually working with there for the feeder contest. This was over 100 million records, and it was the Zillow Home Value Index, which I had to look up because I didn't know what that was. And what I found out is that Zillow is collecting all of this data about housing markets, listing prices, selling prices, what type of house it is, how many bedrooms, all that sort of thing. But what they do then is they feed that through a proprietary algorithm, and they assign a value to the home. So it's not exactly the listing price, it's not exactly the selling price, but it's sort of a flattened look at the price so that you can compare across different housing markets and get more of a true sense of the value of the house, which at first I had some question about, does that really work? But as I dug into the data set, I found that, that really does help, because now I can start to compare things nationwide and really start to understand the value of homes throughout time and throughout different markets.
Okay, very good. So you're you're kind of preparing for that. What does it look like to kind of think through telling a story with a data set like that? You have a week to prepare, but you only have 20 minutes to build. So how do you have to kind of think about that story that you're gonna tell?
Yeah, and you say it's a week, but in reality, when you think of traveling to the conference and everything, it's a couple of days really. So yeah, very quickly I found a story that I wanted to tell. I built a view just nationally over time, and when I saw it, I realized that is a story that I recognize. That's the housing bubble, the collapse, the decline, and then the recovery. And so then I set out to build a dashboard around that and to sort of flesh that story out. Keeping in mind that, yes, I'm only going to have 20 minutes on stage to build something, so I need to keep it simple, I need to keep it something that can be built quickly, but it needs to be powerful and it needs to communicate a story to the audience.
Okay, so, Tableau, if anyone has seen this, and you can go check out the video, we'll have a link to the actual video of the event that folks can go watch, but Tableau makes a really big production of this event. So you've prepared ahead of time, you come to conference. What did it look like the couple days at conference leading up to it, and then the actual day of? Maybe walk us through a little bit of behind the screen, what does it look like?
Yeah, so I went to conference with sort of a rough outline of a dashboard that I felt like I could build something like this in under 20 minutes. So I felt somewhat prepared. But what Tableau does, which is really great, is they provide each one of the contestants with what they call a sous visor. So for the Iron Chef, you get sous chefs. Here we get a sous visor. And mine, David Freifeld, he was outstanding, because I took my dashboard and I showed it to him, and he liked it, but he had a lot of suggestions about how I could just take it to the next level. And there were some things that I thought, well, there's no way that I could do what he's saying in 20 minutes. And then there were other things that I thought, I've got to figure out how to do that in 20 minutes, because it really does help and it really will make a difference. So I really appreciated his insight and his input. And then he became not just a coach, but he became a cheerleader as I'm standing there on stage, and he's answering questions from the host. So it was great. And then that day of was just amazing, because they had told us, reserve this whole day for the Iron Viz. And I thought, why? Hopefully I'm prepared and have practiced a few times, and they're saying, well, it's going to be rehearsal, but it turns out it's not rehearsal for building the Viz. It's rehearsal for everything else. It's where are the hosts going to be on stage? What questions are they going to be asking? Where are the judges going to be? How are we going to come out on stage? And we're going over and over this so that it all works out really well. And it's just amazing the production quality that's in this. And then in the final few hours leading up to it, we're doing makeup. We've got a speech coach there who's helping us know how to project and have energy, and so yeah, just incredible the amount of effort that goes into producing this.
Yeah, no, it's great to watch. So obviously it turns out well. Can you dive in maybe behind the scenes even a little bit more as you think about building a dashboard in 20 minutes? Let's get into the details kind of what are some of the tips and tricks of kind of speed vizzing, right? That you can eliminate those extra clicks and time wasters that we otherwise would do, right, in the process of building a dashboard. Give us a sense for how you think about building a dashboard that quickly.
Yeah, there are definitely some things that you can do that make it go faster. So holding down on the right mouse button when you drag and drop certain fields, knowing that you're going to want to select a different level of detail on a date or a different kind of aggregation, that can help. Setting some formatting for the entire workbook up front so that you're not doing it at every step along the way. And then any individual formatting or default aggregations on measures or fields, and then duplicating the field if you're going to have different calculations that you're going to do, but you want to keep that formatting. That way you don't have to set it over and over again. And then doing the same thing on worksheets. Okay. Doing some individual formatting and duplicating. I think the biggest thing, though, that I would tell anyone about going fast is that, and even day to day, as you're thinking about how am I going to be efficient, know the data set. Mm-hmm. So spending some time up front, understanding what's the level of detail of this data set, what's here, what measures do I have, what dimensions do I have, that really helps you because then you know what kind of calculations you're going to have to create, what kind of visualizations are even possible, and all of that's going to help you be efficient as you build these things out.
Yeah, absolutely. So we've got kind of a visual of even that process, a few steps in the way here of your building out the dashboard, and so from the beginning you can see you're just working on some details behind the scenes, right? And then you start to see the shape of the dashboard coming together over time. So let's go back to kind of the actual event, and we've got the dashboard here to take a look at to see what you produced. So can you walk us through what is the story you saw in the data, what you wanted to tell with this, and some of the key details for this dashboard? Yeah,
so the thing that I saw first was that black line there, that national story of housing values over time, and you see the increase, the bubble, and then how that bubble burst, and you have a decline, and then a recovery. So I saw that national story, but as I began to dig into it, I realized there are individual state stories that some of them are very close to that national story. So I think Illinois, for example, kind of lines up right with that national line, although the recovery maybe isn't quite as good. But there are other states that dramatically really look like that, or maybe even more dramatically like that. Hawaii, for example, really just, you can see that same shape, but you can see that it was a much more dramatic increase, a much more dramatic decrease, and the recovery has been great. I wish I'd bought a house in Hawaii back in the 90s. Couldn't afford to now, that's for sure. But yeah, it's just neat to see the different stories. So what I wanted to do was create a dashboard that captured that and made it easy for someone to get to those stories. So I used a hex map so that you could easily find and select a state, but also so that you could see and compare states very quickly and easily, and without size being a problem, and being able to keep Alaska and Hawaii on there, that was great. So making it easy to select and see those stories. And then as you follow that line over to the right of the dashboard, then you get to see some of the details, and you get to see a current snapshot. This is what the state looks like. Here are what the different cities in the state look like. Kind of giving you the idea, as someone using this dashboard, that there are even deeper stories that you could eventually dig into. And then giving some other metrics, helping you to see how that Zillow Home Value Index matches up with other metrics like the median listing price.
Yeah, absolutely. No, I love that. I think it's very interesting, and I think it's one of the things about your dashboard here is it's very visually impacting, right? In terms of you see that trend that takes up the whole center section of the dashboard, and kind of see the distribution of states, which is really cool. So, what are some of the things that when you were kind of preparing this dashboard for presentation that you were thinking, this is really, I hope, at least, going to set it apart from the competition, right? And earn you that win.
Yeah, so I wanted to use a hex map because I felt like that's never been used before in an Iron Viz championship. I've seen it used some in Tableau Public. I had actually never used it before, but I felt like that would be something unique to use and something very useful. But then I did want to focus everyone's eyes on the main story, which is this graph, and I wanted it to extend all the way from the left through the center and just really pop out big so that you could see that. And I selected colors that told the story and showed that gradient, but I used gold to orange, so not your standard palette that you would normally select in Tableau. So I wanted this to be a little bit different than what maybe had been seen before.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I think it is different. It's great, and so very interesting. So I think one of the most fascinating things about the Iron Viz contest is to watch three people take the same data set and turn it into ultimately three completely different stories. Now, with a data set like this, I think it was inevitable that there was going to be some similarity in terms of some of the big themes that people saw, right? And so, I think that's just the fascinating part about it, though, is everybody gets to take a different take on it. So, let's take a look at the other contestants, and I'd love to hear kind of your feedback and some of the things that you've learned as you've looked at these dashboards afterwards, and what are some of the really interesting techniques that you saw them use to try to stand out from the crowd. So we've got Jacob's dashboard here. What are your take on this?
Yeah, so Jacob kind of started with the same thought that I had, was show sort of that national picture, and so there on the left you can see he's showing a distribution of homes that are increasing in value, and so you can kind of see that distribution, and then below that he's got the map of MSAs, so these statistical areas, so that you can kind of see where that's happening geographically. And then ultimately he animated this so that you can see the swing of values and you can see geographically where those values are changing. Mm-hmm. On the right then, he's selected some key cities and he's showing you that increase or decrease in values over time so that you can kind of see where those lines crossed, and that gets to be kind of interesting because you can see some places it happened earlier, some places the recovery happened sooner, so it's kind of interesting to see that as well.
Yeah, absolutely. I think there's a lot of really interesting data here, and he took it by putting that MSA on there. You can really see kind of the different distributions and having that move. So I know when he showed this and presented it, if you go watch the video, the audience reacted pretty well to the animation and the visual.
Yeah,
so
yeah,
it's
definitely
pretty cool. Very good. Well, let's take a look at Tristan's dashboard now and kind of get your thoughts on that, similarly to Jacob's.
Yeah, so Tristan, who ultimately won, he also shows that national story there on the left, so he sets some context, and it's very beautifully done with those area charts showing the bubble, the crisis, and the recovery. But the main thing there is in the center. He's showing a map of states, and then below that cities. And you can see the animation here. So over time, you can see the increase or the decrease. And when he played that and the audience cheered, that's when I figured he's got this thing won, because it tells a great story.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think I think that animation value, again, like with Jacob's, it's huge, right, in terms of telling a story and getting people excited about it. So, thanks for that. What were some things that kind of, from seeing Tristan's or Jacob's dashboards, that you learned kind of that you hadn't even really seen kind of in digging into the data yourself?
Yeah, I liked how they focused on the metrics of increasing and decreasing values. I think that definitely tells a component of the story that I really hadn't focused a lot on, and so I liked that. I definitely came away with the appreciation for the power of animation.
Okay.
When you're, especially when you're in front of a live audience. So I had thought about animating it, but pretty quickly dismissed that as a thought. I thought, well, I'm going to stick to a dashboard that really pops out. But seeing how the audience reacted to the animation, seeing the power of the story that you can tell that way, I came away with a much greater appreciation of how that works when it's done effectively. And both Jacob and Tristan did a great job of using that feature effectively.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, so at the end of the day, this is a competition, and each contestant is hoping to win, take home the glory and ultimately the prize as well, right? So in this year, unfortunately for you, it went to Tristan, and so but what do you think tipped the? I think we've talked about some of this, but what ultimately do you think tipped it in their favor?
Yeah, the audience reaction, I think, told me right away that his story connected with the audience and with the judges too. I think that just the power behind it and the way that he was able to tell that story in an effective way. Definitely, there are other categories of best practices and good visualizations, but that storytelling piece, that being able to communicate effectively and powerfully, I think that really he did a great job of all of it.
Yeah, no, very, very good job. Congratulations to Tristan, definitely. So overall, what did you learn through competing in the Iron Viz Championship?
Yeah, no, I had a blast. It was a lot of fun. I think I learned overall just different ways of telling stories, and it's exciting to see three people take a data set and each one create something beautiful and effective, but just seeing how different they can be. And so I came away with a great appreciation of the fact that every data set has more than just one story. It has many stories and many different ways to tell that story.
Yeah, absolutely. So I think this is our last question. So for those out there who are considering next year, right? Next Tableau conference is coming. We're expecting there will be another Iron Viz championship there. What's your advice for those folks who are looking to compete?
Yeah, so I would say just do it. I mean, jump in and have a good time doing it. When those feeder contests are announced, go for it. I entered it not expecting to win. I didn't think that my abilities were necessarily on par with some of the other entries that I've seen in the past. But you know what? Ultimately, you can't worry about that. You do the best you can, and there is such a great community there that the feedback you're going to get is going to be encouraging. It's going to be positive. You're going to get some criticism and learn some things, but it's all done in the spirit of helping you get better. And so use it as an opportunity to learn and grow, and definitely feel free to reach out to me or other people that are leaders in the community, because we would love to help mentor or coach or guide along the way, or just offer feedback if you've got something that you're wondering, what could I do to make this better, or is it good enough, or I'd love to take a look at it and just help. So yeah, definitely just get involved and learn and grow.
Yeah. Well, I think there's a couple things that the Iron Viz contest really highlights about Tableau, and probably comes back to why you fell in love with it. And you know, we at Teknion, as a partner of Tableau, we love the tool. You know, just for its speed. I mean, what other tool could you build these kind of beautiful dashboards in 20 minutes? And not only that, but just the community that is around Tableau, and the level of passion and interaction that to even put on a contest like this, right?
Yeah, definitely.
And get the reaction. So I think those are things that that we love about Tableau and are just passionate about. So we're going to have links to a lot of really great content down below. We'll have links to the actual visualizations from all three contestants. We'll have links to Joshua's Twitter if you want to get in touch with him at VizPainter, and also to any other content that we mentioned here. So thank you, Josh, for joining us today for this interview. Really appreciate it, and look forward to seeing the next great creations you have for us.
All right, well, thank you.
Thanks, Josh.